In recent years, when it comes to stem cell research, rather than furthering discovery, our government has forced what I believe is a false choice between sound science and moral values. As a person of faith, I believe we are called to care for each other and work to ease human suffering. And many thoughtful and decent people are conflicted about or strongly oppose this research. But after much discussion, debate, and reflection, the proper course has become clear. The majority of Americans from across the political spectrum and from all backgrounds and beliefs have come to a consensus that we should pursue this research.
Stem cell research in a nutshell is, number one, being able to identify various stem cell populations, which is like being able to identify a needle in a haystack. For instance, if we take the bone marrow, the stem cell population in the bone marrow probably consists of 0.01% of cells in the bone marrow. That's why I say it's like a needle in a haystack. And so it's taken years and years, decades and decades, to actually identify what that one cell is. And the way that you identify it is by cell surface characteristics and also by physiological characteristics. That's part of stem cell biology. The other part is, what is the potential of these cells, okay?
Stem cell research is basically any kind of research done on a cell line that has cells that can become any other kind of human cell that there is. So these cells are able to become any tissue in the body if we tell that cell to become that tissue.
So if you're talking about a neuronal stem cell, does it have the potential to not only form all the cells of the nervous system, but does it have the potential to also self-renew? That is a characteristic of a stem cell. By self-renewal, I mean a cell divides and the two daughter cells still have the biological potential that the mother cell had. That's what self-renewal is. And those are the two characteristics of stem cells: self-renewal and the ability to form all cell types of a tissue or of an organism in the case of embryonic stem cells.
Then we also have embryo cells, embryonic cells, that can become anything that we want them to become. And those come from an embryo that's a fertilized egg, and once it starts going through mitotic division and making more and more cells, we can open that up and take those cells from the inside of the embryo, and those are the best stem cells that we know of. So stem cell research has its controversy, although it's very, very helpful by taking the best stem cells from the embryonic stem cells from the embryos. That's where the controversy comes in about having those cells. They basically destroy the embryo in the process.
As for the ethical considerations with respect to stem cell biology, there aren't any in the vast majority of stem cell biology research. So mostly we're talking about stem cells that are of a particular tissue type, blood stem cells, for instance, muscle stem cells, neuronal stem cells, okay? Because those can be taken from a patient or an individual without harming the individual. And they can be worked on in the laboratory. Potential therapies can be derived from them, etc. The ethical concerns stem from using human embryonic stem cells. That's where the controversy begins, of course, because how do you obtain human embryonic stem cells? Embryos have to be sacrificed, disassembled, and the individual cells then have to be grown out in petri dishes and cell lines developed from these cells.
That is also a very controversial issue because, just to give you one example of an ethical issue, embryos obviously are not in a position to object. So what do we have here? We are conducting research on cells that come from what some people consider are human beings who are not in any possible position to object. And the question is, well, who will speak on their behalf? Is it something that the state should do? Should advocates who oppose research be able to take a position? Again, we begin to see that, I guess, on further reflection, even when it comes to stem cell research today, while I think that by and large the issues are straightforward today as opposed to the future, I guess I will also consider that when it comes to embryo stem cell research, there's some complicated questions even today.
Now, one thing that I don't think a lot of people understand right now is in the last several years, this whole argument is really becoming a moot point. And the reason I say that is that a Japanese group several years ago found a way to create these cells called induced pluripotent stem cells. Okay? So what they did is they took a terminally differentiated skin cell. They inserted 4 genes into this skin cell. And within a couple of weeks, this skin cell had reverted to essentially an embryonic stem cell. Okay, and so now, this is exactly where people that do embryonic stem cell research and work is going with humans. iPS cells are being developed all over the world now in different lines for iPS cells. And so again, this takes the complete controversy out of embryonic stem cells because one no longer needs to destroy an embryo to obtain a cell population, a cell culture that can be maintained indefinitely with the self-renewal capabilities and can also differentiate into all cell types of the body.
Help somebody with Parkinson's or help somebody with a spinal cord injury where we can replace that tissue, or even replace a liver that maybe has cirrhosis and is going to need to be replaced.
Research per se is a good thing. The answer seems obvious. Stem cell research may in the future, or even currently, help us save lives and make progress as we combat some terrible diseases. So the answer seems straightforward. Why not conduct research that will help us address some of these unfortunate consequences and situations?
As a result of the research we're doing now, that stem cell treatments and therapies will be a new paradigm in medicine in the next 50 years, or over the next 50 years. In other words, well, if you think about it, we've been using stem cell therapy, or cell therapy, for more than 30 years, 35 years. Every time someone gets a bone marrow transplant for leukemia, that's stem cell therapy, for instance, okay? And now that we've been able to identify various other stem cell types, neuronal types, muscular types, cartilage, bone, etc. People are coming up with new techniques to harness this power for burn victims, for instance, or for people who have damaged corneas. You know, all of a sudden, and this is possible right now, a guy over in Italy named De Luca is able to grow new corneas, and people that haven't been able to see for 30 years, all of a sudden now are able to see once they get these corneal transplants.